The time and when, after the discovery of iron, Indian civilization had grown and flourished. Before we go into this, I would like to tell you that during this timeline, 1500 to 600 BCE, events like Ramayana and Mahabharata and whole of Vedic age was developed as per mainstream historians. According to them, this is based on the time frame of arrival of Aryans or Aryan invasion or migration theory. I have made this video, you can check this out over here. However, I feel that this timeline might be shifted much earlier than 1500 to 600 BCE because scientists and archaeologists have found out the existence of lost river Sarasvati, which is believed to have dried out about 2000 BCE. While the time frame of these great events is not established yet, today we will talk about how Janpads were and how they have evolved. According to great epic Mahabharata, the Great War involved many different kings, those existed in a whole of Aryavart. Mahabharata war, majority of people, especially men, were involved in this war and were killed. Eventually, major kingdom in Mahabharata war were left with small group of people with fewer men. This smaller group restarted living in areas where they could move about safely in form of territories called Janpad. In Sanskrit, Jan means people and Pad means food. In other words, Janpad also meant as a territory or a region. This Janpad, with increase in population, might have expanded and might have moved to other parts of India. Subsequently, the tribal identity was considered more important than geographical location in defining the boundaries of various Janpad. Often, river formed the boundaries of two neighboring Janpad, which later on became different kingdoms. This fact can be observed by boundaries between Panchal and Kuru. Sometimes large forests also were set as boundaries of kingdoms. The forests at that time were larger than some of the kingdoms themselves. These forests also set kingdom boundaries like Nimisha forest between Panchal and Kosal. Initially, people used to live in smaller nomadic group, but later on they might have decided to settle in a territory. They wanted safety and security of their people and cattle, which was their economic support. As a passage of time, these Janpad or kingdoms kept growing and developing. Many tribes made one brave and clever man as their Raja or leader of the tribe. Over the period of time, this tribe restarted to have their own identity while developing their distinctive traditions and lifestyle. Some of the tribe believed in their shared ancestry like Kuru, Panchal, Kosal and Matsya, so they retained their tribal name. When such big territories were formed with smaller kings accepting the superiority of king, who sometimes performed 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐵 𝐦𝐤, were turned into major Janpad. Such a major Janpad were called as Mahajanapadas. Now let's talk about major Mahajanapads. Kuru. The Puranas trace the origin of Kuru from the Puru Bharata family. Soon after the earlier battle of 10 kings, two clans, one Bharata and other clan of Puru, formed alliance to lay the foundation of Kuru clan. Kuru was born after 25 generations in Puru's dynasty, and after 15 generations of Kuru, the family was divided into the heirs of two stepbrothers, Dhritarashtra and Pandu. They were called Kauravas and Pandavas. It was the first political center of Vedic period, and its major cities were Hastinapur and Indraprastha. Kuru kings ruled with their assistance of rudimentary administration, including Purohit, village headmen, army chief, food distributor, emissaries, and spies. They extracted mandatory tribute from their population of commoners as well as from a weaker neighboring tribes. They frequently invaded neighboring kingdoms on any pretext, especially to the east and south. They battled with them and merged them into their kingdom or tied them with relations such that they always obey them. To aid in governing the kings and their Brahmin priests, they used to arrange Vedic yajnas to function to get treasures from neighbors. They developed a new set of rituals to uphold a social order and strengthen their class hierarchy. High-ranking nobles could perform very elaborate sacrifices and many yajnas, primarily exalting the status of the king over his people. The 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐵 𝐦𝐤, or ritual sacrifice of horse, was one such way for a powerful king to assert his domination over smaller kingdoms. Most powerful of the kings used to perform 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐤𝐿 yajna. Yajna means ritual performance. The king would do a yajna with well-trained special horse of best breed was selected and was left to travel outside into another king's territory. The horse was decorated and it was followed by a battalion of warriors for its protection. Whichever territory that horse traveled unstopped, then king had to accept the supremacy of the king who is performing the 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐤𝐿 yajna. And if anyone challenged the authority of king by stopping or capturing the horse, then that person had to go on a battle with the king's battalion or even with king himself, if needed. If no one challenged the horse, means the authority of king, the horse would be brought back. In a special ritual performance of the yajna, king would invite all the kings who accepted his superiority. In the yajna ritual, the horse would sacrifice and king would be declared as the undisputed ruler of the all lands. Many kings performed this yajna, but only few were successful in completing the ritual. However, there is a conflicting information about whether they sacrificed horse, and some say that they used to eat the horse after the ritual. Other denies this fact. Panchal was the fusion of 5 tribes or Panch Janpad. The Mahajanapada of Panchal was divided in northern part called Uttar Panchal and southern part as Dakshin Panchal. The Uttar Panchal had its capital at Adhichitra or Chhatravati, while Dakshin Panchal had its capital at Kampelia. Panchal had been the second urban center of Vedic civilization. The Shaunak and Taittiriya Vedic schools were located in the area of Panchal. In the epic of Mahabharata, Draupadi, the wife of 5 Pandavas, was the princess of Panchal. The Vats are described in scripture as an offshoot from Kurus. As stated in Puranas, Vatsa kingdom was named after the king of Kashi named Vatsa. Ramayana and Mahabharata specifies that Chedi king Kusa or Kusumba founded its capital city named after him, Kosambi, as its capital. Kosambi was a prosperous city and the residence of large number of wealthy merchants. It served as a junction point or an exchange post for goods and passengers from northwest and south in trade. Sursen. Sursen was a region from the southwest of Matsya and the west of Yamuna, around the modern Brijbhumi. Its capital was Mathura, Avantipur. The king of Sursen was the first among the chief of disciples of Buddha, and through him Buddhism gained ground in Mathura kingdom. Sursen was the sacred land of Lord Krishna, in which he was born and raised and ruled. Matsya. The fishing community known as Matsya, based on the fishing, had their kingdom called Matsya. In Sanskrit, Matsya means fish. Its territories extended to the south of kingdom of Kurus and the west of Yamuna. River Yamuna was the boundary line between Matsya and Panchal. The capital of Matsya was Viratnagar, named after its founder, King Virat. Pali literature associates the Matsya tribe usually with Sursen. The western Matsya region was the hill tract on the north bank of the Chambal River. In Mahabharata, Pandavas completed their Ajnatavas in their final 13th year of exile in Viratnagar. Ancient Cambodia is known to have comprised region on the either side of Hindu Kush. These later Cambodia were associated with Dardars and Gandharas in Indian literature. It is also found in the edicts of Ashok. The capital of Cambodia was probably Rajpura, modern Rajouri in southwest of Kashmir. The Cambodia had its affinity with both Iranian as well as Indian clans. We find some evidence that Cambodia followed Ganrajya system or republican system. Mahabharata also refers this as Ganas. Panini Sutra specified it as a monarchy with difference and special rule that king was just a head of Gana system. Malla was another clan having their Janpad named Malla. Mahabharata also significantly named it as Malla Rashtra. Same time, Jain and Buddhist scripture also mentions Malla as a strong and powerful clan of region of eastern India. Mahabharat mentions son of Pandu, Bhimsen, conquered the chief of Malla in the course of his expedition through eastern India and was associated with clans of 𝐤𝐤, 𝐽𝐤 and Kalinga as the eastern tribes. Malla originally had a monarchical form of government, but they later became a Sangha republic whose members called themselves as Rajas. Malla were brave and warlike people, and many of whom later on turned followers of Jainism and Buddhism, accepting principles of non-violence and ahimsa. Thus, feeling weaker, the Mallas seems to have entered into an alliance with Licchavis for self-defense, but lost their independence not long before Buddha's death and were annexed to the Magadha Empire along with Licchavis. However, Malla later separated from Magadha and formed important dynasty in the 9th century in eastern India. Avanti was the most important kingdom after Kosal and Magadha. It had two capital cities, Ujjaini and Mahishmati. Avanti later became part of Magadha Empire when King Nandvardhan of Avanti was defeated by King Shishunag of Magadha. 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐤 was a union of some 8 or 9 tribes or clans. The Licchavis, the Vidihans and 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐤s formed a Mahajanapada. Amongst them, 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐤s were more prominent and important in ruling the Mahajanapada, so it was named as 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐤. The city of Mithila became the most important center of political and cultural events over a long period. Especially, Vidiha became more prominent during the reign of King Janak. In 599 BCE, Vardhaman was born in the capital city of Vaishali, having evolved himself with eternal knowledge, who believed and preached non-violence for all life, and was known as Lord Mahavir. His ideology and preaching are the basis of Jainism. Around the same time, few years later, Prince Siddhartha renounced his princely life, left kingdom to attain eternal knowledge, and was named Gautam Buddha. His preaching on life and non-violence was spread wider. His followers called him Lord Buddha. Lord Buddha visited Licchavis on many occasions, so Licchavi became followers of Lord Buddha. Licchavis and the people of Magadha had a close relation through marriage amongst each other. It is noteworthy that a branch of Licchavi dynasty ruled Nepal until the beginning of Middle Age. Later on, Vaishali, the capital city of 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐤, was defeated by Ajatashatru of Magadha, merged this Janpad into Magadha. The whole region of Gandhar, short name Gandharis, has reference in Rigveda. 𝐼त्रेय Brahmana refers it to the king Nagananjit of Gandhara as the contemporary of Raja Janak of Vidiha. Gandhar were settled from Vedic times. Gandharas and their king has much more prominence with strong allies of Kurus against the Pandavas in Mahabharata war. Gandhara were well trained in variety of art of war. It was an important channel of communication with ancient Iran or Persia and the Central Asia. We find in traditions narrated in Puranas that Gandhara Janpad was founded by Gandhar, son of Arunda, a descendant of Yayati. The prince of this Gandhar are said to have came from the line of Dhruyu, who was famous king of Rigveda period. The river Indus watered the lands of Gandhar, Takshashila and Pukshalvati, the two major cities of Gandhar, and said to have been named after the Taksha and Pushkara, the two sons of Bharata, a prince of Ayodhya. The kingdom sometimes also include former Keshka, known as Kashmir. Its capital was Takshashila. The city's famous educational institute or the university was renowned center of learning in ancient times, attracting scholars from all over the world. Sanskrit, Panini and the 𝐭𝐡𝐢𝐤 both studied and also taught at Takshashila. Takshashila was destroyed in invasion of Alexander. Asaka or Asmaka, another Mahajanpad of Asaka, was located on the south side highlands or a plateau called Dakshinpada, outside the pale of Madhya Desa. The capital of Asaka was Potana or Potali, which corresponds to Podanya of Mahabharata. The river Godavari separates the country of Asaka from that of Mulkas. 𝐭𝐡𝐢𝐤𝐤's Arthashastra relate Asaka to Maharashtra. At one time, Asaka included Mulka and their countries was just close to Avanti. Kosal Mahajanpad was located to the northwest of Magad with its capital city Sarasvati. According to scripts of Ramayana and Mahabharata, Kosal Mahajanpad were the descendant of King 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐤. Puranas give detailed dynasty of 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐤 founded by 𝐦𝐨𝐤𝐤 right from 𝐦𝐨𝐤𝐤 to Prasenjit. 𝐦𝐤𝐤. Puranic literature mentions 𝐦𝐤𝐤. 𝐦𝐤𝐤 was named after its founder 𝐽𝐽, son of Vali. It is said that Vali didn't have any sons, so he requested sage 𝐦𝐸𝐺𝐻, who blessed 5 sons to Vali through his queen wife Sudesana. They were 𝐽𝐽, 𝐽𝐽, Kalinga, Sumaha and Pundra. These were the ancient cities of India during the time of Ramayana and Mahabharata. However, there is an interesting story in Ramayana on 𝐜𝐤𝐤, who was burnt alive by Shiva, and his body parts or angas got scattered, so the area was named 𝐽𝐽. The river Champa formed the boundaries between Magad and 𝐽𝐽. 𝐽𝐽 was bounded by river Koshi, a tributary river merging into Ganga on the north. Most of us know through Mahabharata that Prince Duryodhana named Karna as the king of 𝐽𝐽. Champa, the capital of 𝐽𝐽, formerly known as Malini, was located on the right bank of river Ganga. It was a flourishing city, referenced to as one of the 6 principal cities of ancient India. It was a great center of trade and commerce, and its merchants regularly sailed to the distant Suvarnabhumi. Other important cities of 𝐽𝐽 were said to have been Ashapura and Badrika. Magad. Magad was the most prominent of all the Mahajanpad, because later on it establishes the dominance over most of India, ruled by different dynasties. Its capital city initially was Rajgriha, and later on it became Patliputra, the present-day Patna in Bihar. Magad was ruled by many kings of various dynasties over centuries, beginning from as early as 500 BCE to 3rd or 4th century. This Mahajanpad takes over the whole of Aryavart in span of few centuries and forms the first empire. Anyways, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.